main slate for week 14. Obviously, that is all of the 1 and 4 p.m. Eastern games. Who do you like for stacks?
Well, I'll have to go with one of our obligatory Niners stacks, so I'll take it this week. But Brock Purdy and Deebo Samuel specifically, love them this week. And then you could throw in George Kittle. Just Purdy and Deebo are too cheap this week, just based on the matchup. Deebo obviously thrives against zone, and Seattle uses it the second highest rate. And we saw Deebo torch them just, 2 weeks ago? People might shy away from them this week just because San Francisco is such a big favorite. You wouldn't expect them to throw as much, but it's still a great stack. Again, you could also throw in Kittle to make it a double stack, who had a slower game last time. This one could be pretty chalky. So my other one is more of a true, large GPP dart throw stack of going back to my boy Aiden O'Connell at 5,100, stacking him with Devontae Adams, who's a bit pricey, 7,500. And then you could also throw in, Michael Mayer at 2,900, or send it back with like TJ Hawkins in there for a mini game stack. But, the Raiders are coming out of a bye, so we could see Aiden O'Connell finally have a true breakout game. He's come so close to really having those the past few weeks. And it's, it's a tough matchup against the Vikings. So I expect this to be a very low rostered stack, but he could break out. Very aggressive downfield passer when he needs to be, so has a shot. And he's a rookie coming out of a bye, and so is Michael Mayer, who I don't see why they wouldn't expand his role over the last few weeks. They're evaluating for 2024 anyway. Very talented tight end. He's had a couple nice games, but could be a true breakout game here. He's below 3K, so a nice little three-way stack here, or a game stack, but very interested in stacking Aiden O'Connell before like the inevitable breakout game comes, I think.
I like that. And I would include Jacoby Myers in that conversation as well. On the season, Devontae Adams, the PPR wide receiver 23 at 14.5 points per game. Jacoby Myers, the PPR wide receiver 24 at 14.1 points per game. So those guys have been pretty equal in terms of production, and Jacoby comes at a discount in terms of price and likely rostership. So I wouldn't count him out either. But I love that. I think that's one of those stacks that it's in a spot where you're not worried about the weather in Vegas.
Yep.
So that already gives you a leg up, even though it's a low total game. You could see a lot more scoring than you think, because you do have some firepower here with Justin Jefferson back, and that's one of my stacks I mentioned on our player projection pod over on the Action Network podcast channel, that I think the best way to invest in Justin Jefferson this week, I mean, obviously you're starting him if you have him in any redraft league or anything like that, but DFS, I think he's really intriguing stacked with Josh Dobbs, because there's been talk of Dobbs getting benched or having a short leash, and then we don't really our projections for this whole Viking offense are a little bit muted compared to what they would be with Kirk Cousins, because you can't project Dobbs for as many passing yards as Cousins was racking up. But the potential is, the ceiling is still there. And if Justin Jefferson is, let's say there's no limitations because he sat out that extra week, got through the bye, there's no limitations on him, he's going to significantly raise Josh Dobbs's floor and ceiling to the point where it makes it a lot less likely he gets benched. So I think I love stacking Dobbs Jefferson this week, because everyone's going to, I think, be worried about the benching, and that will probably be baked into median projections, him potentially getting benched. So DFS tournament, I think it's the perfect time to invest in a Dobbs Jefferson stack. Just love, and you got the weather or the non-weather factor.
Yeah.
So love. That's how I would invest in Jefferson, and I like what you're kind of talking on the other side. That's why I love that O'Connell stack, because I think both sides of this game are very intriguing, because if Jefferson is balling out and Jefferson and Dobbs are balling out, that means O'Connell and Devontae and Myers or Mayer, those guys will have to put up some points too. So it kind of works both ways, right? Like if either one of these hits, you got some correlation here. So I think this game is going to be a little bit underrated when it comes to rostership and stacking. One other one I like is kind of under the radar, or even more under the radar. Baker Mayfield stacked with Mike Evans. I'm sure Mike Evans will be popular, but Baker Mayfield has been pretty middling, below average in terms of fantasy. But he had his highest rushing yardage total of 32 against the Falcons in the first meeting. His third highest passing total, 275 in the first meeting against the Falcons. AJ Terrell, their top cornerback, who ranks 28th out of 118 qualifiers in PFF coverage grade, he is in the concussion protocol. And more often than not, guys who are in the concussion protocol tend to miss the next week. Sometimes they come back, but there's a decent chance that he'll miss. And then on the other side, Tampa Bay's defense has been so bad that even against a team like the Falcons, Tampa Bay could get scored on. And that will then force Tampa Bay to throw on the other side. So Tampa Bay's defense, since their week 5 bye, is bottom 5 in EPA per play, 28th in EPA per play. So this Falcon team, especially in a game that's going to be played indoors in Atlanta, this could be another sneaky shootout. And with so much weather projected to affect these games, there's a lot of totals that are in this 30, low 30s to or mid to high 30s to low 40s. But I would favor the ones where weather is not going to be a factor where possible. So this total is only 39, but indoors in Atlanta, bad Bucks defense, Mike Evans balling out, and Baker did put up some decent yardage totals against Tampa Bay, over 300 total yards. Against Atlanta in the first meeting. So like the Baker Mike Evans stack, not just the solo Mike Evans, as I know a lot of people are going to do, but just correlate them with Baker and see where it takes you on a week where you might need that low scoring quarterback because again, the weather might mute a lot of the guys people might pay up for.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, Mike Evans is their passing offense right now. Godwin had 0 catches.
He did have a rushing touchdown, but yeah.
Oh, he did have a rushing touchdown. That's nice. But K. Dotton, 30 routes run, didn't draw a target. I mean, this is all flowing through Mike Evans and Rachaad White right now.
And speaking of which, let's go to dart throws. I'll have something on Otton in a bit, but who do you like for dart throws?
Well, Jake Browning's obvious at 5,200. Obviously, he's a great cheap play because they didn't really bump up his price after Monday Night Football because pricing was already out. So he's probably going to be chalky. So I do like for GPPs, Aiden O'Connell's $100 cheaper. I feel like just with Jake Browning sitting there at 5,200, Aiden O'Connell's going to be a great player. And
Baker's 100 more expensive.
Oh, really?
So that's why I like both of those.
Yeah, exactly. Like Browning
going up or down by like 100 or 200 either way. Perfect.
Yeah. Jameis Winston's around there too. So Browning should be highly rostered at his price, but what I'm saying is all these other guys are going to be great plays as well. And then at running back, I like Dameon Pierce at 5K. He reclaimed the lead back role from Singletary, had a 3-yard touchdown run, so he's getting the goal line work. And this is a matchup, against the Jets where the Texans will likely lean on the run. So given the current splits, that's going to be Dameon Pierce, I think. So definitely worth it at 5K. Roshan Johnson at 4,900's interesting. He took over the lead back over Khalil Herbert last time. Even if Deontay Foreman returns, I think he's going to have a big enough role to be worth 4,900. He should remain the pass catching back. And this is a game where we could see high wins. So there's just going to be more run plays, maybe more dump offs to the running back. So that would likely be Roshan. So he could benefit from the ugly weather. So like him at 4,900. I already mentioned, Jackson Smith-Njigba on our other pod at 4,100. Love him here. Just been heating up since the week 5 bye. Typically sees way more playing time in trailing game scripts. So, Seattle's 14-point dogs here. So should see a ton of playing time. Has the better matchup in the slot. And then I already mentioned it, Michael Mayer at 2,900 at tight end coming out of the bye. Very talented rookie tight end. The Raiders, it would behoove them to give him more playing time the rest of the way. So it would make sense to unleash him a bit. He's had some, splashy games in the past, but we could see a true breakout game here despite the tough matchup. I do like him at this price point at 2,900.
Yeah, Mayer is jumping up my ranks. He's up to my tight end 16 this week, which is I'm pretty sure
Nice.
the highest that I've had him
Yeah.
all season. So like Mayer as well. And yeah, I think this is one of those slates where, like I said, I think you definitely want to get creative. So like that's a good call on, yes, Browning is, a great play value wise, but also pay attention to, some guys you can get maybe a couple $100 cheaper, couple $100 more expensive, because I think it's just going to be chaos on this slate. Combine the weather and all the uncertainty of the backups, and it's just it's one of those slates that I think is wide open. For me, I like Keaton Mitchell at running back. He's 4,900 on DraftKings, 5,900 on FanDuel, going against the Rams, and he's kind of right in that wheelhouse where he's still a dart throw because he's still not even playing 50% of the snaps, but he might this week. His snap rate has gone 18%, 24%, 36%, 46% over the last 4 weeks. Now they're coming out of the bye, and he started the last game against the the Chargers? Yeah, the Chargers. He started that game, led the backfield in snaps, 46% for him. Hill and Edwards had just under 30% each, and he led the Ravens in touches in that game as well. 11 to Gus Edwards is 9, and Justice Hill's 5. And remember that wasn't like there wasn't garbage time in that game, really. Mitchell started, and that game was a 3-point game with under 2 minutes to go. And then Zay Flowers, instead of going down, runs it into the end zone for a long touchdown. But I wouldn't sleep on Mitchell. I think this might finally be the week where he gets over 50% of the snaps, where he's treated like a true starter. They're always going to mix in, I think, all three of their backs. But remember, Gus Edwards was getting 55, 60%. Earlier in the year. Dobbins, same thing. So I think you might see Mitchell, and he's very explosive, so he can do more with less here. Home favorite against the Rams, so great spot as well. So love him. Coming out of the bye too. Rookies coming out of the bye, always love that. Another rookie, Cedric Tillman at wide receiver, 3,400 on DK, 5,400 on FanDuel against Jacksonville. We saw that Jacksonville is vulnerable even to backup quarterbacks on defense. Tillman's averaging a 90% route participation rate over his last 4 games. He's had 5 and 6 targets over his last 2 games. And, 32% of his targets have been deep this year. So about a third of his targets have been downfield. Flacco and him had a 19 average depth of target. So it looks like Flacco is going to get another start here. So we know Flacco, if there's one thing he can still do, it's throw the ball down the field. And Tillman still hasn't had his true breakout game. So especially if Amari Cooper's out, I think Tillman, Njoku's obviously going to be popular if Cooper were out, but I think Tillman and Elijah Moore would be. But I think Tillman, again, a rookie that hasn't really broken out yet, but is playing 90% of the snaps, can't really get more routes for 3,400 on DK, 5,400 on FanDuel. So love him. And one more, Cade Otton at tight end, 3,100 on DK and 4,900 on FanDuel at Atlanta, averaging an 87% route participation rate, which we love, 90% since the bye back in week 5. So he's on the field almost every snap. And what I really like is he didn't have a catch last week. So, he's a guy that you're kind of betting on a bounce back. Is probably going to be lightly rostered because no one really wants to touch a guy that didn't catch a single ball despite playing almost every snap. But Atlanta defensively allowing the third most catches per game to tight ends at 6.3, the third most yards per game to tight end at just over 63, and they are bottom 6 in fantasy points allowed to the position as well. So I think this is a good matchup for Otton. And last week they were going against Carolina, and Carolina's one of the best teams against tight ends. So now Atlanta's one of the worst. So this is a great bounce back spot for Cade Otton, and you can buy pretty low here, almost at min price. So love him as well.
Yeah, I love the Keaton Mitchell call because it looked like he leapfrogged Gus to be the lead back, and then they had the bye, so maybe it's not on top people's minds, and his rostership might be a little bit lower as a result. Because if they played the very next week, I think his rostership would have been sky high. But hey, people had 1 week to forget about it, so like getting him in this. like 5K range at running back, I think it's the sweet spot this week. I think there's some really solid options there.
Yeah, Mitchell, Pierce, Roshan, Kareem Hunt is another one.
Yep.
Didn't even mention, but he's kind of drawing even with Ford in terms of usage,
Yeah.
and they could be run heavy. So yeah, quite a few options. All right, let's go ahead and build a lineup. I'm gonna start with a guy who you took last week. Didn't really work out, but I think he's a great play. I think he's a top two back once again this week, and that's Zach Moss going against Indianapolis. So 5,900, still a great price for him. I think we both have him RB2 this week,
Yep.
and I doubt he'll move because that Cincinnati defense has been vulnerable on the ground, and Moss played almost every snap last week. So the underlying usage was there. Fade the kind of dud. Tennessee does have a pretty good run defense, one of the best actually, although they did lose Simmons last week. But this week, Cincinnati is one of the worst. So yeah, give me Zach Moss, 5,900.
Yeah, I was gonna go with him, but I'll go with his teammate Michael Pittman at 7,300.
Love it.
Way too cheap on DK.
Yeah, he gave me a good 30 plus last week.
Yeah, I can't let you have him again.
All right, let's see. Give me Brock Purdy at 6,500. I'm gonna go build a little different. I think a lot of people are gonna go to that like low Drake Browning range, so I'm gonna pay up a little bit. But I love Purdy this week, as I do every week. Anytime he has those 3 pass catchers healthy, plus CMC and Trent, I think, and no weather concerns. So yeah, give me Purdy at 6,500. Where you go next?
I'm going defense. I'm getting ahead of you on this one. I think there's a no-brainer play right now. It's the Browns at 3K. Obviously, the prices came out before Lawrence's injury. So against CJ Beathard, love him at 3K.
All right. Yeah, I thought about the Browns actually, but I think there's some options here on defense. The Browns are I think the best value, but
yeah, I'll let you figure out who the next one is. I'm curious to hear what you think. But again, Tuesday, my defensive projections are the least far along, so I got to go with the obvious one here.
I'll go with Keaton Mitchell at running back, 4,900 at home against the Rams.
I'm going to actually spend up and get the most expensive player right now, Christian McCaffrey at 9,200, and confident in my ability to find some cheap ones to go along with him.
Love it.
But he's 5 points ahead of. I got to counter your Purdy. Every McCaffrey rushing touchdown will be amazing for me here, but he's like 5 points higher than Zach Moss, who's my RB2 here. So it's just huge advantage having him here.
All right, for my defense, I'm gonna kind of punt a little bit. I'm gonna go up against that road outdoor Jared Goff and go with the Chicago Bears at 2,400. So one of the 2 cheapest defenses on the slate. But the Bears have been surprisingly putting up some pretty good defensive performances. 14 against Minnesota, 9 against Detroit, 7 against Carolina, 17 against the Raiders, 10 against Minnesota. They have quite a few solid defensive performances this year. Now they're coming off the bye. So let's just take a chance here and go with what we know, which is Jared Goff always struggle in these outdoor spots. So Bears 2,400. I got 66, just over 600 for 5 more players. Where are you going next?
Yeah, let's go. I'll take my boy at tight end, David Njoku at 4,100. Definitely too cheap there. He's about the little bit more expensive than Kyle Pitts. I'll go Njoku.
Let's start it off. Let's go Mike Evans here, 7,700. He's only had 2 games of non-double digit DraftKings points this season. AJ Terrell might be out with that concussion, so 7,700 at Atlanta for Evans, indoor game. Love it. Where are you going next?
I got to prevent you from having a Purdy Debo stack again, so I'm going to go Debo here. I don't mind having McCaffrey and Debo. This is more of a head-to-head cash game format, so it kind of raises my team's floor and kind of blocks your Purdy a little bit.
All right, as long as I get, as long as Purdy's balling.
Yep.
But yeah, no, Debo is still a little too cheap in my opinion. What,
Yeah.
6,800.
6,800.
Yeah, I think he deserves to be over 7, especially against a zone heavy Seattle defense. Yep. All right, let's see where am I going next. I got 5,650 average for 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. I'll go Dalton Kincaid here. 5,500 against the Chiefs. He has 5 or more catches in 6 straight games. So nice. Like that floor for DraftKings, and obviously has a ceiling. Could end up being a shootout with the Chiefs.
Yeah, who knows? Who would have thought we'd been saying that?
Right, could be maybe
defensive struggle. Yeah. I'm gonna go with I have to start getting some cheap guys, so I'm gonna go uber cheap here and go Jonathan Mingo at 3,500. But he's been really turning it on. I think he's pretty decent like flyer on DK specifically for full PPR, but I like him at 3,500 here.
He got back-to-back double-digit games.
Yep.
Don't mind it. All right. So I got 5,700 average for 2 wide receivers and flex. Let's see. Let's go with Drake London at 4,600. At that price, it's pretty much all upside.
Yeah. I was considering there too. Way too cheap.
Lowest price of the season for Drake London. In a matchup against a team that's been bottom 3 in pass defense since week 6.
Yeah, I was considering there. I'll go with his teammate Bijan Robinson at 6,500. It was Tyler Algiers kind of being like phased out a little bit, so Bijan had some really good underlying usage in Tampa Bay. Yeah, their pass defense has been shaky, and both linebackers, Devin White and Levante David, were out last week, and both their backups got hurt too. And they Chuba Hubbard looked like prime LaDainian Tomlinson against them last week. So I think this could be a blow up spot for Bijan.
Yeah, I think I have him like RB6 or 7 on the week. So I love him. All right. I have 6,250 for a wide receiver and a flex. Let's buy low on Adam Thielen, 6,300. Like the matchup against man coverage. I think he bounces back this week. So I'll take him at 63. So that gives me 6,100 for my flex.
Gotcha. Well, then I'll take my flex now and leave my quarterback slot for last. I'll go with Jackson Smith and Jigba at 4,100. Love him at that price. And then that leaves me 5,500 at quarterback, which is perfect because I have 3 or 4 quarterbacks to choose from I like. So I'll go with that.
Yeah, give me Courtland Sutton here. I'll go with some touchdown upside since I think my rest of my lineup's pretty decent values. Sutton has been living off touchdowns. Got 1 in 6 of the last 7 games, but that's the name of the game. So
yep, all great catches. He has an amazing catch every game. It seems like.
Where you at? How much you have left?
So I have 5,500. I have a quarterback.
Oh yeah.
I got to pick. I'm gonna go Jake Browning here. Obviously he's gonna be very highly rostered at 5,200. Heading into Monday night, he probably should have been 5,200 for this week, but after Monday night, he probably should be, I would say, like 5,600. So I think I'm getting some nice Monday Night Football value here. So let's go with Browning. So I have 300 left over.
All right, who you got? Recap your lineup.
Yeah, so I got Jake Browning at quarterback. Then I went Christian McCaffrey and Bijan Robinson at running back. My wide receivers are Michael Pittman, Deebo Samuel, Jonathan Mingo. Tight end, I went with David Njoku. And for my flex, I went with Jackson Smith Njigba. And my defense is the Cleveland Browns going up against CJ Beathard and the Jaguars this week.
I got Brock Purdy at quarterback, 6,500 against Seattle. Zach Moss at running back, 5,900 at Cincinnati. Keaton Mitchell at running back, 4,900 hosting the Rams. Wide receivers are Mike Evans, 7,700 at Atlanta. Drake London, 4,600 against Tampa. Adam Thielen, 6,300 at New Orleans. Tight end Dalton Kincaid, 5,500 at Kansas City. My flex is Cortland Sutton, 6,100 at the Chargers. And then punting defense and fading Jared Goff outdoors, 2,400 for the Chicago Bears at home. All right. That is going to wrap it up for the Fantasy Flex Fantasy Preview episode for Week 14. For more fantasy content from Sean and A, be sure to check out our full player projections episode out right now over on the Action Network podcast channel. And don't forget, we drop our night shift episode every Friday where we break down the primetime DFS slates, Sunday and Monday Night Football. ActionNetwork.com for all of your NFL fantasy and betting content needs. FantasyLabs.com for DFS tools and models. Don't forget the Action Network Discord server. The link is in the episode description. You can find Sean on X at @_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. And we're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until next time, let's get this money.